Hello, Fanlanders. I'm Christina. Thank you, fans, for watching our episode blog. You can follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook page, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. To ransom a man's soul. Wow. Did those cows kick some butt or what? Yippee for those Highland cows. Jamie is rescued. Blackjack's in check. But unfortunately, not checkmate. We'll have to continue that story another time. What an emotional roller coaster. Never before has a TV show caused my guts to literally clench, and I just felt so emotionally sick at different times while watching this episode. It was rich with visual imagery and psychological drama. I consulted with a professional psychologist to get the nitty-gritty understanding of Blackjack's character. We will be diving into this at the end of the episode blog in a special segment, so watch and see. Let's hear from the fans. I took a pulse on social media to find out what their response was to season finale, and this is what they had to say. Her power in secret is love, BJR. A line I wish we'd been able to use is when Jamie says he built a little roof over the part within himself that was broken. Gallic scene. Jamie's voice is heartbreaking even if I don't know the words. Well, I came, I saw, I watched. I think my pillow might need a new stuffing, though. I think the Marquis de Sade took pointers from Blackjack. I just ran an emotional marathon. Writer DG, thank you most for giving the world such an enigmatic story of such depth and surprise for humanity to live with. Here we go into the darkness. Hold my hand. This is the scene that wins. Jamie laying there staring. The reality of what had just happened all sinking in. But then we see the camera start to pan up and over him. And there's Blackjack laying behind him. Ew. It just sent shivers down my spine when I saw that. You owe me a debt. Please. He'd surrendered. The imagery of Blackjack holding the knife and the way it was positioned in the foreground. Thank God this is the closest this knife is going to get to Jamie's throat. Jamie is distraught when Blackjack leaves to find out about the noise. My heart was breaking. My guts were turning. Jamie wants to die. The director uses visual elements to draw a connection between Claire and Blackjack. When we see Blackjack leave the cell, he pulls his hair back with a tie. His hair is curly. He's wearing a grungy white grayish shirt and black pants and black boots. Later on, we see Claire on the road. She's wearing the exact same clothing. Jamie is brought to the monastery. Now the ordeal of healing begins. Jamie does not want to be touched by Claire, so she asks, "What did Randall do to you?" And he responds with, "Too much and not enough." Let's explore what these words mean. Claire and Murtaugh are determined to save Jamie's soul. They both have their own ways. The confession brought a sense of peace to Claire, and Murtaugh loves Jamie as a son. Either way, they both will not give up on Jamie. Claire will step into the darkness to save Jamie, whatever it takes. Flashbacks are used to deepen our understanding of Jamie's ordeal. At first, Jamie resists surrender, but then Blackjack threatens to recapture Claire. If Jamie does not comply with a favorable response, if he plays the worm, a softie, then Blackjack will have him hard and yelling as he slips further into a delusional state brought on by pain, torture, blood loss, brutal rape, and branding. Jamie is more vulnerable to being broken. Blackjack draws upon Claire's femininity to create a visual connection between himself and Claire in order to weaken Jamie's will. He touches Jamie softly, spreading the lavender oil like Claire. He drapes his hair on Jamie, as to remind him of Claire's long curly hair. He speaks of her, conjuring her image. The representation of Jamie's will being broken manifested itself in the arousal and release. I'm kind of having a hard time saying these words because it was such an emotionally intense scene. He tells Claire that it felt so good to not be in pain. How would Claire ever want him or forgive him? The branding becomes a latent representation of his surrender and why he does not want Claire to see it. To make sense of all this pain, Claire passionately professes that, of course, she forgives him and she will have him no matter what it takes and always. I don't know about you, but I watched this scene over and over and over, and tears were just rolling down my face. It was so emotionally strong. Without him, she would die. As Jamie's hand slowly comes up Claire's back, I see his will bending to Claire. The realization that he does not only have himself to consider here. And this diabolical man, Blackjack, cannot maintain his power over him. The cutting out of the brand, the final symbol that Jamie will heal, and that love conquers all. Those boys, a light moment. What sweet goodbyes. Long overdue, and definitely enjoyed. Aw, sweet Willie, he's such a young boy, and he gives her that hug, and maybe he's feeling some guilt about not being able to protect Claire early on in episodes 8 and 9. Angus, awkward groping moment there. Went a little crazy. And Rupert, what a gentleman as he gives that sweet little kiss to Claire's hand. We will miss these characters, but it's not farewell forever. The crucible below, expansive and beautiful. Jamie and Claire sailing off to France. Glad to see that Jamie is getting his sense of humor back. That precious smile on his face when Claire tells him that she is expecting. Let's set the course for season 2. Onward to Paris. Hello, Fanlanders. I would like to introduce Dr. Brian Salinas. Today we're going to consult with him regarding the character Blackjack. I think we're all very interested in what makes a character such as Blackjack tick. Brian, you've watched the Outlander episodes. What psychological diagnosis would you give Blackjack, considering that he is a characterization?
Being that he's a characterization, he's not necessarily going to truly fit neatly into a real diagnosis. But I think what the author was going for was trying to present somebody who is antisocial personality disorder and somebody who had sadistic habits.
What are some of the characteristics of an antisocial diagnosis?
So, antisocial personality disorder, sort of in this high-level nutshell, is somebody who does not believe the laws of the land, apply to him. So here in the United States, laws against murder, against crime, they don't believe that those laws apply to them. And so they have no sense of guilt or remorse if they hurt somebody, or if they steal from somebody, or they do things to violate the laws. So we see that Blackjack, in the show, he had no issue with violating Jamie's personal space. Hurting Jamie, really setting Jamie up to have his lands taken from him by framing him for that murder.
What is the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath?
Okay, so a lot of people are familiar with the term sociopathic and psychopathic. Okay, sociopath and psychopath. Well, see, antisocial personality disorder kind of encompasses those two different types of ways of thinking about people who are willing to hurt others. What people don't understand is those two words are not really so much interchangeable. A sociopath is somebody who, shall we say, is created by society, created by events. An example would be somebody who grew up in a neighborhood where violence was the only way to keep yourself safe, to get things that you need, like food or keeping your shelter. A psychopath is somebody who, it doesn't matter what environment they come from, they just seem to not have a sense of guilt, not have a sense of remorse, and they're very okay with being willing to hurt other people. So they're born that way.
Who in our society fits this characterization of Blackjack?
Well, the person that comes to mind to me is that gentleman Castro in Cleveland who kidnapped those three and held hostage those three ladies, and one of them was like for 10 years because he had no sense of guilt or remorse about and no thought that what he was doing was wrong. And it's my understanding that in the beginning he did torture them to get them to break so that they would be too afraid to run. And obviously, since First Lady did bear him a child, I believe it was the First Lady who bore him a child, and he was getting his sexual pleasures from them as well. Now, what I don't know is if he tied the sexual pleasures into the torture like we see Blackjack do with Jamie, okay? Not only was Blackjack getting sexually aroused from the pain he was inflicting on Jamie, and thus the sadist aspect of Blackjack's personality, or characterization, this other gentleman, we don't know if that element was there. But I would have to say that he's probably the closest I could think of, maybe outside of Jeffrey Dahmer, who would sort of fit the profile that they were going for with Blackjack Randall.
Dr. Salinas, how is Blackjack different from a rapist?
A rapist, sometimes it's about power, sometimes it's about rage, but it's not so much about necessarily breaking the spirit and the will of the other person. Whereas Blackjack was about breaking Jamie's will. He wanted to own Jamie, in body and in soul. And rapists aren't necessarily about that, okay? And Blackjack felt no guilt or remorse about it, whereas a rapist can. And there are times that they do. I would say right there, to me, that's the biggest difference.
Thank you, Dr. Salinas. This information is very interesting, and it helps the fans to understand Blackjack and the depths of evil he is capable of reaching.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure answering your questions and helping people better understand Blackjack Randall.